Hello everybody, the Lawn Gnome is here, and how big of a film appreciator am I? 3 words: rock and rule. The movie that I want to discuss today is the British horror film The Woman in Black. Now, this was an anticipated movie for me because this was the first role of film that we were going to see a young man by the name of Daniel Radcliffe shedding his robes from Hogwarts Castle and putting himself into a completely different role. And my thoughts on this film were it was a unbelievable film, especially for a breakout role outside of Harry Potter for Daniel Radcliffe. Daniel Radcliffe, I always knew was going to be something big because you saw his evolution in the Harry Potter films and, of course, his stint on Broadway. But never have I seen somebody do so much in a film by saying so little since Tom Hanks in Road to Perdition. The way that Daniel Radcliffe moved throughout the film, playing a lawyer who lost his wife, and that's the only spoiler you're going to get about this movie. He just played such an incredible role with his body language and his eye contact and his emotions of remorse. And in the moments, because this is a horror film, in fear, he really showed true fear in the way that he looked at the camera. I also love this movie because when you're in a world of horror films like slashers, like the Friday the 13th of the world, and the Saws of the world, and the Nightmare on Elm Streets, this was a true gothic horror film that gives you the classic jump-out-of-your-seat scare tactics, but at the same time really warps the mind, because you're wondering what's going to be at the end of this hall, or what's going to happen in this room, or why is that chair moving? So, it really got people, clinging to their friends and jumping out of their chairs and screaming, and also just trying to make a couple of jokes throughout the theater just so they could keep their sanity. So that was another thing that I liked, and the period of time in the early 1930s just made it even more interesting to see, because I love those period pieces, like Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. If you haven't seen it, you should. And that's pretty much it. It was just an entertaining film. It really flew by quickly. It never dragged. And even the slow points were just really great when you saw the interaction between the characters. And these were mostly actors that I didn't even know. So alongside Daniel Radcliffe, it was just a great watch. Now, what did I not like about this movie? Not much, but I have to think of another 3 words: the greater good. If you are not a fan of horror films, you're not going to appreciate this movie. You probably won't even see it. If you're also not really a fan of Daniel Radcliffe, because the reason why a lot of people went to see The Woman in Black was to see Daniel Radcliffe in a different role. So if you're not a fan of horror films and you're not a fan of Daniel Radcliffe, you're probably not even going to want to give this movie 10 minutes of your time. So I'm going to give it a greater good review verdict of 3 stars. I enjoyed it. And a lot of people didn't like the ending. I thought that it was good, and I thought that it was appropriate for the film, because I understand these classic spiritual ghost stories. So that's it, everybody. Comment, like, and subscribe. And the question that I want to leave with you today is, there was actually a question that was polled towards audiences of the ABC News because of Oscar weekend coming up this weekend. And it was in regards to the fact that not a single Harry Potter film has actually been nominated for a Best Picture award. Do you feel that any of the Harry Potter films, from the Sorcerer's Stone all the way to the Deathly Hallows, do you believe that any of them were worthy for Best Picture? My personal opinion, I would probably want to say the closest would be the Deathly Hallows Part 1. I am the Lawn Gnome, and remember that actions speak louder than words.